the highs and the lows, the wins or the losses, they don't like define you. They're on your resume and like they matter to you, but like the sun comes up tomorrow.
Yeah.
We got a long run at 8 a.m. Like we're going back to work. You may have just won the NCAA title, but tomorrow morning we're going back to work. Or you may have just sucked in that race. Bummer, but tomorrow morning we're going back to work.
We are live in Boulder, Colorado with Emma Coburn. Emma, thanks so much for taking some time to chat.
Hi, happy to be here.
The first question of this podcast, besides do you want to adopt Chai, the cutest dog, is always a tough one. And that question is, who is Emma?
I think Emma is honestly the same Emma I was when I started running in middle school and high school, maybe just a little tougher now, but really care about my family and friends and, find a lot of joy in pushing the boundaries of my physical abilities and pushing hard and finding a lot of joy in that journey. I'm really competitive. And so whether, that's like a card game or a track meet, it's that. But yeah, I'm just a very normal person, but just, I think my friends and my family and my competitiveness with running and working hard, those are pretty much the things that define me.
I've been looking forward to this conversation for a while because you're the epitome of this podcast. The podcast is called For the Long Run, exploring the why of what enables runners to run long, strong, and motivated, or in your case, short, fast, and motivated. You've been doing it for a while now, and you still seem to have a fire and a passion for it, and just figuring it out with all the new variables that life has presented. And so I'm excited to dive into that and understand like what makes you you and what enables that joy and passion to coexist. I've found that through watching your work with Team Boss, it's been really cool, the role model that you're able to set for the next generation. I want to dive into that, and both the next generation and the current generation. And I'm curious, how did running find you? What was it about the first strides that hooked you in?
I feel like I have a little different experience with my relationship with running as a kid in middle school, high school years. I did not like running at all. I loved doing other sports. Running is really hard, and I preferred basketball, volleyball. I played hockey. I skied.
Like a good Midwesterner.
Exactly. I'm just a Colorado kid. I just would rather be like, going skiing or snowboarding than like breathing really hard by myself on a long run.
Was hockey big in Crescent Butte?
Yeah, we don't have like a football team.
Yeah.
So hockey was like it was the only organized winter sport for elementary because we didn't have basketball and there were ski programs, but then in middle school, basketball and hockey in high school were like the winter sports that were like, what everyone did. But it was co-ed. So by the time I got to be 14, I played through my freshman year of high school, and I would do basketball and hockey during the same season, and I was just getting smoked. Those boys are big once they're and it's checking, like you're hitting each other, and I wasn't like
co-ed with checking.
Yes, and I wasn't a good hockey player, so I was not good enough to like outmaneuver these big high school boys who were trying to hit me. So I retired from that and really just only did basketball then, but I just liked these other sports more. It's just less pressure, team sports, physically less painful, and really fun. And so I didn't get hooked, interested in running until probably like the summer before college. But I ran in middle school and high school because to get allowance money in my family, you had to participate in sports year round, and track was the only spring sport. So we all did track.
Yeah.
And I hated it. It was not for me. And then junior year of high school, I started working with a private coach who kind of believed that I could be great. And I was like, you're crazy. Like, I don't understand. He saw me running across the street in flip-flops and was like,
Your form is fantastic.
he had recently moved to town and he was like, who's that girl? And his friend was like, oh, that's one of the Coburn girls. And he was like, she looks like, and I was in flip-flops, like whatever.
Yeah.
And so then he like tracked down my dad and asked if he could coach my sister and I. And so he believed in me weirdly that I could like be great. And he had no business in believing in me. Like I was not very excellent. And then Joe, my now husband, moved to Crested Butte to be coached by this guy. The coach's name is Trent Sanderson. And Joe was passionate about running. Joe's a way more traditional story with running, that he loved it right away. He did, little 5Ks and 10Ks as a young kid, loved it, had dreams of running in college, read Running with the Buffaloes and was like, this is what I want. And made it happen. He left Wisconsin and moved to Colorado to a boarding school his junior year of high school because he was like, there's this coach and I believe in myself and I want to be able to run in college and he can get me there. So Joe moved to Crested Butte and we became great friends. And he was the first peer of mine who liked running and dreamt of running in college and thought it was great to push yourself physically and kind of be vulnerable in running. And and then obviously like I had a crush on him and liked him. And so the combo of like that coach and Joe and, like my parents, they kind of created this world that made me start to like running. And then I got recruited to run in college and I was like, well, I guess I'll do this. But I didn't like running until probably the summer before college.
Is that sense of belief in you what you've looked to foster in Team Boss and create an environment around you where other people believe in other people? Have you reflected on like...
Yeah, I think what I learned a lot from Trent, a lot from Joe, a lot from my college coaches, Mark and Heather. It was more just that like discipline and routine and consistency and not expecting anything handed to you, that you have to make it happen. That's really what I learned. And those are like tangible things. I kind of feel like hope and belief and all of that is so surface level, and it's not the thing that moves the needle. And it's not the thing I had, my parents believed in me a ton when I was a middle school runner, but I didn't.
You had to do something with that.
Yeah. And so what I feel like more with Team Boss or any younger athletes that I talk with, it's they want to hear like write the line on your wall and put it on your mirror. Like, I believe in myself, that stuff. They want that. But for me, that belief comes from working hard.
Yeah.
And that belief comes from executing my training and focusing day to day on those tasks. And it's not hope. It's executing this reality to hit your goal. And so I feel like that's more what I try and foster in people, is bringing them a little bit of like a reality check of like, no, you can't just hope your way to the Olympics. That's not how it works. But you can work your way there, and there's going to be bumps in the road, and the way you get there and the way you persevere is the diligent, consistent work.
I've joked that my only agenda with this podcast is to demonstrate that the only secret is there is no secret.
Exactly.
You just articulated that.
Yes.
So check.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit more about like how to navigate the fact that the only secret is there is no secret through harder times, right? So it's nice when you're on top of the world and you're at the Olympics and whatnot, but it's a little harder maybe to stay true to that when you're injured or when things aren't going your way.
I actually think it makes it easier, because when things are hard, or you have a bad race, or you have loss or grief in your life, or something happens outside of your control, you can ground yourself back in the work. And you can say, wow, I fell at the Olympics that I was expected to medal in. Like, that was heartbreaking. Yeah. I got DQ'd and I sucked and it was terrible. what do I like? I am going to, instead of hoping that things will get better, I am going to go home, rest, recover, rebuild, get back on the horse.
Yep.
And, or my mom was sick for a long time and passed away. And it's like dealing with those emotional, heavy, big feelings. It's like, okay, I can't control anything that's happening with my mom's health. I'm not a doctor. I'm not an oncologist. What I can control is like my relationship towards like my choices within my life. And it's like, I am going to choose to go on my run. I'm going to, even though I'm super sad, and I'm going to choose to do my drills and strides, and I'm going to choose to get my correct amount of sleep and my good fuel. And like, it gives you things to control when things are down and shitty and bad. You have like tasks ahead of you to just do the next thing. And then time heals all wounds. And so you move on, and, or maybe not move on, but you move. and by making these like, having that work makes, I think, the hard times doable.
I didn't plan on going here, but you mentioned it, and feel free to say, let's move on to another topic if you want. You just mentioned that you lost your dog 3 days ago.
Yeah.
We went through that 2.5 months ago, and I've never lost a parent. I've lost grandparents, and it was like crazy different. The like pure love of a dog there's nothing else like it. When we lost Alfie, we said goodbye to him in the backyard here, and he walked over to us, laid down, and the vet was here, and the vet was bawling his eyes out, but like he came to us, and trusted us, and was ready. The next few days, weeks felt impossible, and to your point, I made a point to get out for my run and just do something, run for 30 minutes, whatever. You've unfortunately had the experience in dealing with grief recently, now multiple times. Like, how are you going about this process and giving yourself space? Like, hey, I know what the roadmap could look like, and this fucking sucks at the same time. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think externally, like I think from the outside, some people might watch people move through grief and hard things. And there's always going to be a little bit of like, maybe not always, but there could be some external judgment, whether you're someone who experiences grief by like, you know, you have to lay in bed all day, or if you're someone who experiences grief and you're really productive. Like either way, like there's a thing that feels right for you, but for me, the going through what I went through with my mom, I still had these incredible goals in my career. And she got sick. She got diagnosed December of 2019. And obviously we didn't know COVID was coming, but I had just won a silver medal at the World Championships. I think at the time still had the American record. And we thought the Olympics were coming up. So it was a very good lesson that next few months of like, I am broken. The future I thought I would have is gone. My life will never be the same. And that's all fact and that's all true.
Right.
But that's on this shelf and I see it every day. I feel it every day and it's there. But I still have to like do things that make me feel joy and do things that will make her proud or do things that will move me through life. And so that was like a really big, life-changing experience to where I felt I was really proud of myself. Like I think it taught me a lot about strength and I learned that because that's how she acted with her diagnosis. Like she she stayed positive and she moved through it and all of that. And so I think when we lost our dog, it's a lesson of that again. Or my mother-in-law had in 2025 was diagnosed with breast cancer and was going through treatments and dealing with that, and that was difficult for our families. And she's doing well now, but I feel like my mother-in-law, my mom, Arthur, when you have things that are just so heartbreaking, it teaches you a lot about like yourself when you are strong enough to get out the door and go for 30 minutes. And when you are, when you are able to move, and I don't mean physically like go exercise, but I just mean like, I don't mean move on, because we never move on from like great losses, but move through life and continue on. And you have a pit in your stomach about your dog for a long time, and you have, it feels like you have, like you swallowed a ball and you can't breathe right. Like there's physical reactions to that sadness. But I do think for me at least, and it sounds like for you, like, making active choices to get up, go do things, continue your life is really important. And, at least with my mom, that I knew she would want that for me. She wouldn't want me to have my whole life be shattered by her loss to where I can't do anything and my dreams fall apart. And, and our puppies, they would want us to still be happy,
How does running, how does Betty, how do these things that are cornerstones of your life, like how does that play a factor?
I mean, purpose. Everything is about purpose. A lot of us runners feel like our purpose is to shoot for our goals, whether we achieve them or not, but it's to show up to the Niwot track and grind out some reps and work hard. And a lot, that's a lot of our purpose. Betty provides, she just turned 1 in October, and she provides another layer of purpose to where it's just life is so much bigger. And like it's so much bigger than me. Whether I have an injury or have a great workout or have a bad workout, whatever it is, it's like, oh no, I come home from that moment and I have this little baby here who, one, needs her mom to take care of her, but also is happy and adventurous and wants to play and like does not care at all what splits I ran at the track, whether it was great or bad. She doesn't care. She just wants to hang with her mommy. So no, but she provides a purpose for sure. But I think purpose in general, whether it's work or running or kids or relationships in general, like that's the most important thing in life.
You talked about setting goals and shooting for the stars and aiming big. I've been doing this podcast for a while. One of the most pivotal conversations I had was in March or April. It was March of 2020 with Vanessa Fraser. And I asked her a question I thought I knew the answer to. But I asked, like, fast forward 10 years, what are you really proud of? And I've now referenced this like a dozen times on the podcast. So people who listen are like, this story again.
Yeah.
But I'm really curious your take on this. Her answer was, I was expecting her to say something like win an Olympic gold medal or do this or like something extremely tangible. And I have to go back and listen to the episode, but it was something along the lines of like, I want to be really proud of the contribution I made to my team, or I want to like be really proud of the growth that I've had. Mm-hmm. And I was like, this is interesting. This is like a Nike athlete who's being paid to compete and win, saying something very not tangible. And then I kept asking that question, and I kept finding from people who have achieved conventional levels of success that that's how they answer the question. Is that how you answer the question? And how did you get to a focus on the process versus the winning the gold medal or winning the silver medal or like setting the American record, whatever that like tangible thing is?
Yeah. I mean, I think that is really reflective of who Vanessa is as a person. She's very thoughtful, and I was lucky to be her teammate for a little bit. And no, she approaches it with a lot of patience and a lot of like big picture mindset, which is important in this sport. I think in general, the process and like it's all about the journey. That is very true, but it has to be true because the nature of this sport
It's so variable.
is you can do everything right and not get the result you
Yeah.
want. You can check every box
Yep.
and still get hurt. And it's because you have to be pushing your body to the razor's edge all the time. And even with the most thoughtful training, there's moments that it's not your race, it's not your day, whatever. And so you get knocked down enough that you develop a lot of patience. And I think if you're in a conventional career where every 3 years you get a promotion and you get a 5% raise, those people might not say, I want to just have I want to have a career that I really feel like I contributed well. It's like, no, that person might say, no, I want to be the CMO,
Right.
Because it's way more linear. And so for us, it's just you develop a lot of patience and appreciation for the journey of it and the grind of it. And that being said, we all are showing up and doing that work because we believe we can achieve those actual conventional accolades of we believe we can be making teams. We believe we can be setting records. We believe we can set PRs. But I think you can't, as an athlete, have that be your sole motivation because you're just bound to be disappointed.
I had this conversation with Kate Grace, who I know you know well, and she was like, yes, and you set the carrots in front of you on a daily basis. So you have tangible things that you can say you're striving for, whether it's the 60-minute run and the lift, whether it's doing the mobility stuff, or like these little micro goals that, you check the box on a daily basis. And if you check 90 of 100 boxes or 83 of 100 boxes over 100 days, like that builds to something strong. So again, going back to my agenda of the only secret is there is no secret. How do you set that box checking process on a daily basis in motion? And I'm asking for the amateur runner who's listening, who's like, hey, I want to break 4 hours in the marathon, or I want to run my first 5K, or like something like that they can't do today and they need to work for. How do you set the structure in order to be successful?
This is going to be a disappointing answer because I don't have like tips and tricks.
Yeah.
This is just fully who I am, where in my opinion, you kind of either
you are or you're not.
Have it or you don't, in terms of the willingness and the desire to create habits and structure to make yourself successful. So for me, it's intentional, but it doesn't feel like sacrifice. It doesn't feel like, oh my God, I have to go to bed at 10 o'clock, darn it. Like for me,
it's just part of it.
Yeah, but it's also just, it doesn't even feel,
it's not a sacrifice.
It's not a sacrifice. And it doesn't feel like this big drag or, I have to be intentional of saying like, oh yeah, like it's 11. Oh yeah, I'm probably due for a carb heavy snack. But it's not, I don't find anxiety in it. And I have observed that in various friends over the years or my peers in the sport or amateur runners as well. There's some athletes that like, it's not a big deal. It's like getting up and brushing your teeth and doing the things that most humans don't have anxiety about waking up and brushing their teeth. And that's how I feel about a lot of the sacrifices that I have in this sport, but I don't view them as sacrifices. It's literally as easy as brushing my teeth, or as mindless as that.
Has it always been that way?
Well, I would say it takes, Joe as my coach, we will often, after every season, like see what went right, what went wrong, what we have to adapt. And obviously like as my body ages, there's different adaptations needed to remain healthy and successful. And so we certainly analyze that and there's new things we add or new things we take away. And so it's intentional moments that take maybe a few weeks of being like, all right, no, I'm doing this and I have to get this in my routine. And
what's an example of something like that?
So an example would be like, honestly, as something as stupid as like, oh, I got blood work and like I have really bad omegas. I need to take a fish oil supplement.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, right, because I don't like fish. So now I just have to remember, when I wake up, I take a fish oil supplement. Or in a running standpoint, it'd be like, okay, I'm now doing my sprints the day before a workout and not the day after a workout, and just remembering like, all right, that's an adjustment I'm making. Simple stuff, but there's 70 of those a day, right, of those things.
Right.
But again, for me, it's as simple as brushing my teeth. And for other athletes, that having that kind of structure and saying like, okay, at my bedtime snack after I eat dinner, I'm having oatmeal or yogurt. Like, that's not difficult, but it's intentional and it's something I do. But for other athletes, having that checklist, they have to try really hard, and it creates a lot of anxiety and stress. And so it's not sustainable to them. And so that's an annoying answer, because if it doesn't flow with you naturally, like my way, how it presents in my brain and how I have discipline and structure is no big deal.
But that is one of the components that enables you to be successful, right?
Yeah, and it's sustainable for me.
Right,
so I've been a pro for 13 years and made my first world championship team in 2011. Like, I've been doing this a long time. Right. So if it was mentally taxing to do all these small little things, I couldn't sustain that for this many years.
Do you think that like somebody who doesn't have that come naturally, like, could be in like a fake it till you make it?
Yeah, I mean, you might as well try.
Right.
You might as well try. And I think for a lot of people, whatever they say, like, I'm probably getting this wrong, but they say like it takes like 3 weeks to make a habit or something ish. If you can try for 4 to 6 weeks of doing something, like, possibly, but it would just be inconsiderate for me to be like, this is how you do it.
Right.
Because I have just observed, and I know the way my brain does it is effortless and feels chill. And for a lot of people, it creates anxiety, and it's very difficult. And I don't think that's like a skill or a talent of mine. I think it's just how my brain is, you know?
Yeah, makes sense. And again, I think the takeaway is like, if that's not how your brain works, and we are somewhat agreeing that this is an essential piece to unlocking that next level. Like, you've got to figure out a way to make it happen.
Right. There's a fork in the road. You either have to figure out a way to make those habits and choices work, or set new goals.
Right.
And there's no shame in either way. I think you can learn habits, and I think you can learn systems and processes, and but again, it's just like, that is what's required to win Olympic medals. Like, that's what's required to make world championship teams. And so you either have to figure out a way to like do that. There's no one making a world championship team in the US
with poor habits,
with bad habits. Right. You know, like, I'm sure there's a handful of people,
but they're outliers. Yeah.
Yes. But if you took a poll of any athlete 1500 and up who made the Tokyo 2025 team, what their bedtime schedule is,
so the sprinters aren't.
I just don't know. I can't speak to that. And I honestly, I also think the 800, like, depending on if you're a sprint based 800 or not, like, I can't speak to that either. But I think if you took a poll, it would be, you know, I go to bed at 10 o'clock every night.
Yeah.
And I think our training is all very different. And so I don't think that would be an interesting or helpful thing, because it's not like, if you can just run 100 miles a week.
Right. You're in.
For 12 weeks, you're in. That's just not true. Like, there's athletes who run 60 miles a week and are great. There's athletes who cross-train a lot or don't cross-train at all. Like, there's 1,000 different ways. But in terms of like, do you, like, are you considerate about the amount of like do you consider the amount of protein and carbs you're eating in terms of making sure it's enough?
Yep.
Like, I don't think many people are like tracking their calories, but like, are you thoughtful when you're making dinner? You know, like the answer is yes.
Yeah.
So there's some bare minimums that are required to be great.
I've been listening to Emily Infeld in particular talk about like making sure she's getting in enough carbs on a daily and weekly basis. The food culture around you and your teammates is, I'd say, one of the best in running, maybe, at least from what we see on Instagram. Can you talk about the intentionality around, or maybe it's just how you are, but the sharing of that and the sharing of like, there's room for this and there's room for that. And it's not like I have to be dialed, or maybe there is a season for I have to be dialed.
Yeah, I mean, it's two parts. One, I grew up with a mom who, you know, treated food in a very beautiful way where, you know, at school, I would have a bag of Doritos if I wanted it, and it's great. And then I'd come home and for dinner, there'd be a salad and steak and potatoes, and and then I could have ice cream for dessert. Like, there was just, our dinners were all like homemade, whole food ingredients, that type of thing.
Yep.
But it was never even like, oh, we have to have brown rice because it's healthier. Like, there was never like, we have to have this because it's healthier. Type of conversation in my family.
So no cauliflower pizza, fortunately.
No. It was, I think because my mom was, you know, I was lucky that she was able to stay at home and she loved cooking. And so her vibe with food was, she would just make really great food. And if it happened to, you know, there was a ton of butter in it, and there was a ton of, you know, sometimes she'd have like make fried chicken. Like, it wasn't all clean.
Yeah.
That just wasn't a word in our house, but it was all like homemade whole ingredients. But then to balance it, it's like, we also had a for breakfast, you know, our go-to is like Lucky Charms, and snacks were Doritos. And so I think growing up, I just had a really well-balanced relationship with food and exposure to food. And then, so just carried that through. And I've similarly just like never, you know, had body image issues or ED. Like, there was, from that perspective, just as a lot of teen girls, you know, I didn't experience that either. And so that was great. But then as I transitioned into training harder in college and training hard as a pro, that I think is when a lot of Joe's interest in running and interest in exercise physiology and interest in training played a key role of being like, oh, hey, like, you like we have a big long run tomorrow, like for dinner we should have like a lot of carbs. Like, that's something that I just wasn't a running nerd enough to like know about. And so even now it's like, you know, he'll be like, oh yeah, make sure we're, you know, is that enough potatoes? Do you need more? Or like, his is always like, are you getting enough? You know, making sure and being pretty accountable with that. So it's a combo of Joe and growing up with my mom's cooking, where I feel like the food culture is very much have large quantities of it, and then like nothing is off limits. And so I kind of just I feel like that's really important to teach the younger runners that I have trained with. And it's a learning curve for some people, and not because they are resistant, but just because they didn't grow up around that, or they didn't have that in college or whatever. So, but yeah, it's obviously a huge part of being successful and having longevity in the sport is fueling your body. It's, you know, more carbs, more protein. It's like it's really, really important.
Amateur runners see a lot of like the 1% of, do we do bicarb? Do we do ketones? Do we do this? Do we do that? Like, what are the pros doing? What are the like things you're testing because you've already done the basics? Yeah,
I mean, honestly, nothing is going to compare to super shoes. Like, that was just the biggest shift in performance. And I think even now you're seeing just it at like the high school level where these high school kids are running such excellent times. And like, you know, my friend Parker Valby, she was like saying super shoes came out and she like hadn't even started really running yet, like for fun or whatever. And so she's like never not had super shoes, and I'm like, oh yeah, we're different in that way. And so it's like I think super shoes beyond bicarb, ketones, all of that is like the biggest shift in terms of performance. And then
give a shout out to New Balance. What super shoes are you running in?
Good call. I wear the RC Elite or the for like the majority of my training, like workout days, and then I wear the Pacer if I'm like on the track but want flats, because they're just like the stack height's a little lower, and so they're just like turnover wise feel a little bit quicker, but still a flat. And then their spikes are insane. They're so good. And I use the MD 800, which is a middle distance spike, but there's enough like foam in it to really not like shred your calves up. But I think a lot of pros do bicarb. I think like just a lot of people do bicarb, and that's like, I have only done it a handful of times in practice.
With a toilet nearby.
Exactly. No, and then like I broke my ankle in 2024 during my first race, so was, probably going to participate more in that as the year went on and try it out, but didn't get an opportunity. And then 2025 hurt my hamstring again, so didn't get an outdoor season. And so I haven't like dipped my toes in it very much, but no, it's definitely, I would say, the most popular.
So if an amateur runner is listening and they're like looking to experiment with things that add that in that last 1%, or I guess super shoes are not 1%, but you would steer them to super shoes versus like diving down the supplement rabbit hole.
Yeah, I mean, everyone is different, and like if you're just kind of a running nerd and you want to just try all the stuff for fun, great. But yeah, like good training, good weightlifting, and
Emma's
super
band
shoes.
Work.
Exactly. And super shoes are like, those are the things that'll get you there. Like you can be really out of shape and have a bunch of bicarb and you're still not going to run well. Like you're not going to have like a breakthrough performance.
Right. What does 2026 look like for you, and how are you setting that up?
I am setting up 2026 with just like a lot of patience. I'm going to compete. Like I'm not like done. And I don't have anything on the books for indoors at the moment. Like, there's always a possibility I would hop in something, but I'm really just approaching my season with May, June, July in mind. I just was banged up last summer, and so had to take a big reset, slow build back just for my health. And so, I'm just being patient, but no, I'll certainly be on the track in 2026, but it's probably not until springtime.
What do you think about on the starting line? I think a lot of amateur runners deal with like anxiety around like, okay, something crazy is about to happen. And what I've learned from a lot of pros is like they dial into like the amount of preparation that they've done. What are you thinking about when you're about to send it?
I think it's important to know like everyone's nervous. So like you don't have to feel like you're under this microscope where like you're the only person experiencing this. If you're on the start line of a 5K, a road 5K, like other people around you are going to be feeling that too. Like if you're a recreational runner.
Especially if they took bicarb.
Yeah, exactly. But I think what you said earlier, like a lot of the pros that you talk to think about the things that they did to get there. And so for me, that's often like a big workout I did, or if I'm at a world championships or Olympics, I'm thinking of my last Diamond League I did, or the US championship. A lot of it is thinking about my tactics that I want of, often in the steeplechase, it's like in my head, I'm breaking it down into 3-kilometer chunks. And each chunk has a different mission and a different mindset. And another athlete, Nikki Hiltz, they have shown in their note section, like they'll post on Instagram sometimes the notes that they had leading into it of mantras and plans. And I think that's a really unanimous thing, that whether you write it down or it's in your head, that we have either like a mantra or a goal. And not a goal like, I gotta win, but being like, stay calm.
Execute in the third lap.
Like calm first K, calm. And then position, and kick, whatever it is. And so I'm often kind of just like repeating that. And one mantra I had that was like the most loud in my head was in 2017, the race that I ended up winning the world championship. I was coming in ranked 6th in the world, not even close to the podium. And Joe just wanted me to be like, we have nothing to lose. Just go for it and stay with the leaders for the first 2K. And if you blow up, I don't care, but just go for it. And so the standing on the starting line, it's like my mantra that day was stay on it, stay on it, stay on it. Just stay on it. And so that's when I'm standing on the starting line. That's what my head is saying. And then it's like silence. Like I take some deep breaths and there's nothing in my brain. And then the gun goes off. And so I think if you're an amateur athlete or a non-professional runner at a race and you're feeling nervous, like break it down and be like, okay, I'm racing a 5K. The first mile, I know it's going to be downhill. Okay, stay relaxed, stay smooth, don't go too hard. Stay relaxed, stay smooth. Okay, second mile, I can hit that first mile marker and then I'm going to shift. And I think giving your brain something else to think about besides being nervous is really important.
This was a tactic that I specifically like reflecting on the workouts along the way. That's a tactic I implemented this year. I did 2 ultras. Those were the only races I think I did all year. And you'll love this. I was running through Crescent Butte in the Grand Traverse. And so I'm like 10 miles in with 30 miles to go. Yeah. And I'm like, think about all of those.
At 10,000 feet.
At 10,000 feet, which was the low point.
Yeah.
I was like, think about all the times I, like the hill reps going up Mariposa. And I was doing like 1K hill reps as I'm running and thinking about this as I'm running uphill at 10,000 feet. And it's so cool what that like reaffirmation of like, you deserve to be here. You did the work to be here. You can do this. And just like reminding yourself of the work that you got there with.
And breaking a race down into smaller chunks of small missions and being like, all right, I'm going to get to 1 mile or 5 laps to go. Like just talking to yourself positively, or even like for me, it's often like mathematically where I'm like doing math in my head, whatever.
Even on the track?
Oh yeah, no, I'll be doing my splits of like, all right, that was a 71. Like, all right, now I have 650 to go. We're gonna work till 550 to go. Like, but the point is you have to be either having your mind blank. Sometimes it's just nothing, but either positive self-talk or focusing on your next little mission or silence, but something just to make sure there's no negative of like, you can't do this. This is hard. Of course it's hard. It's a race. That's the whole point. It's hard. And so it's finding ways to keep the devil on your shoulder that's telling you bad news out of your ear during your race.
Okay, on the other side, post-race blues. I imagine that you worked through this with the Olympics and with World Championships. This is something that every runner, no matter the level, has to deal with at some point. How do you navigate that after a big event?
I think it depends. It depends on the circumstance. In like 2021 Olympics, when I like just felt awful and fell and ended up getting DQ'd and whatever, that was just that was really heavy and hard. And it took time to like, reset from, but that time was, a couple weeks. It wasn't like haunting me for, I mean, like I look back still and I'm like, dang, that sucks. But it's not like, it didn't like haunt me for years. It was like, because I just got back on the horse and like started working again and problem solving and trying to figure out what went wrong. Or like in 2023, I tore my hamstring I didn't realize this at the time. It was already partially torn, but I fully tore it. I tore it more in World Championships and didn't make it to the final, which was the first time in my career that had happened. But that was like problem solving. All right, we have this injury. We have to like get sorted. And so I think, or if there's just like a race that there's not an answer and you just ran badly, it's a little like, sometimes you sit there and you're like, how the hell did that just happen? What the like, what was that? But but you just, my college coach, Mark, would always say, like, the sun comes up tomorrow, and whether you win or lose, we're meeting at 8 a.m. for the long run. And both the highs and lows, like, I think that taught me a lot. Like, the highs and the lows, the wins or the losses, they don't, like, define you. They're on your resume, and, like, they matter to you, but, like, the sun comes up tomorrow.
Yeah.
We got a long run at 8 a.m. Like, we're going back to work. You may have just won the NCAA title, but tomorrow morning we're going back to work. Or you may have just sucked in that race. Bummer, but tomorrow morning we're going back to work. So I just think I
love that.
Yeah, you just deal with it by diving back in. And it doesn't mean the shitty moments, like, they still hurt. They still hurt a lot. But I think you can't wait for the pain to go away. And I think this is true with grief, what we were talking about earlier. You can't wait for the disappointment of a race to go away before you decide to start back up again. Or you can't wait for the grief and the pain from your grief to subside before you start up again. Because it takes so long and there's no timeline. And so you have to make that choice to be like, all right, I got a run at 8 a.m. tomorrow. I'm going to be there. And, like, I'm fucking pissed about my race, or I'm really excited about my race, but, like, I am just a normal person again on this starting line of this long run. And here we go.
I've got one more question because Joe's got a Packers game to get to. I want to be mindful of the time here. I'm going to ask you that same question. Fast forward 10 years. What are you really proud of?
I mean, I feel like I feel like I will have a lot to be proud of. Like, but I do think where the choices I've made as a runner and as a person, there's been here and there moments that I think I fucked up. But in general, I think I can look back and know I did everything I could. Sometimes that was working too hard, or sometimes that was trying too hard. But there's not a moment that I can think of in my career that I chose the lazy path, or I chose the get out of jail free card, or I was, like, passive and didn't try my best. And so, of course, there's certain races that you're like, dang, I didn't focus for 2 of the laps and I should have done that. Of course, like, on a really small scale, there's tiny moments here and there that you're like, oh, wow, I kind of bailed on that rep. That was bad. But overall, I feel like I can in 10 years look back and just be proud of, like, really just proud of my effort. And I'm not even going to go into, like, legacy and mentorship and that whole world, because that's bigger than me, kind of. But just when I put my head on my pillow at night, I think I'll be able to just be really satisfied that I know I showed up and did everything I could.
Amazing. We may have to go another round another time, but I really appreciate the chat, and we'll see you out there.
Thanks.
Of course.